Today I watched two films that I'd been meaning to watch for a while from the 1930s, and unfortunately I was a little disappointed in both films. That happens. The first one was King Vidor's Our Daily Bread. It's written, directed, and produced by King Vidor, as well as co-written by Elizabeth Hill and Joseph L. Mankiewicz. And it's from 1934, and it's a kind of sequel to Vidor's The Crowd, in that the two main characters have the same names. However, they do not have any of their children or any of the other things from The Crowd, so I don't know how you could quite call it a sequel, unless both their children died. Spoilers for The Crowd, because if you've seen The Crowd, only one of them dies. More spoilers. So in Our Daily Bread, it's basically like, hey guys, what if the Soviets were right and we should have communism as a way of getting ourselves out of this depression that we're in? So it basically the couple played by Karen Morley and Tom Keene are buying meat on credit and talking their way out of paying their rent and things like that when her uncle comes and she's like, hey, can you help us? And he's like, you know what, I have this farm and I can't farm it, and the government wants to, or the bank wants to foreclose on it soon, why don't you guys try it? And they go, and he finds that it's very hard until a wonderful Swedish farmer played by the ever wonderful John Quaylen shows up and teaches him actually how to farm. And then he's like, what if we get rid of capitalism and we all work together to create a utopia where we all just use our skills and help each other? And that's the film. And then, of course, at one point, a woman of the night shows up and tries to derail everything, because that's the history of film. It has no music, as far as I can tell. Supposedly, according to Wikipedia, Alfred Newman did the score, but I don't recall ever really hearing any score. It really needed some better music. And it's these actors that aren't great, so it just felt very dry. And I've seen enough Soviet films. I don't really need to see it in the 1930s also. So I think the one thing I like about King Vidor is that he was always trying something new, and whether it worked or not, he was always trying something new and pushing the boundaries of cinema in its early days. So I'll give it that, but I was not the biggest fan of this film. I was bored through most of it. The next one I watched, based on the summary, I thought it was going to be much racier, and I found this one really boring kind of too. And this was 1931's Millie, directed by John Francis Dillon, based on a novel by Donald Henderson Clark, starring Helen Twelvetrees as the titular Millie. She is a young woman who marries a wealthy New Yorker who sweeps her off her feet and takes her to New York. 3 years later, all she has out of the deal is a really nice baby and a husband who keeps cheating on her, and some friends that call her up to try to get some money from her, played by Joan Blondell and Lillian, is that how you say her name? Lillian Tashman. Eventually, she discovers that her husband's cheating on her and decides to divorce him, and her friends try to convince her to be either a show girl or to become a woman of the night. But she decides no, and so she's going to be a cigarette girl or a newsstand girl and work in a hotel, and it's going to be fine. And then she picks another loser of a dude who cheats on her, and then she becomes a woman of the night. However, many years later, for her daughter, who's now a teenager, although we're still in 30s costumes, is about to be taken advantage of by one of her previous suitors. Things go south. This sounds like it would be a really exciting, fun film, and I usually like Helen Twelvetrees, but this film was really the tone was strange. It never quite picked what it wanted to be. It never quite gelled. The only times that there was true wonderful energy on screen were the scenes with Lillian Tashman and Joan Blondell. At one point they're sharing a hotel, or they're sharing a room together, and they're literally in bed in their 90s together, like trying to figure out how to pay the rent, and that stuff's great. And usually I love these like 30s um, ladies who are friends films. Like there's a bunch of them. Jean Harlow made a couple. Obviously, Joan Blondell made several. And normally, I'm a fan, but this one just for me the magic just wasn't there. Um, so I was a little disappointed in both these movies. But you can see Millie. It's on public domain. It's also on Watch TCM right now. It's probably the best print you're gonna get is the one on Watch TCM. Our Daily Bread's also on Watch TCM right now. It might also be, yeah, it's also in the public domain. So they're both in the public domain. You can watch them pretty easy. Um, Unfortunately, I was not really a fan of either film, but you win some, you lose some in this game called cinema.